In this video, we take a look at how to use subroutines, and more specifically, the two main types of subroutines that you need to know about, and those are procedures and functions. So as we just stated, there are two main types of subprograms. There are procedures which carry out a task and have the added benefit of providing structure to your code. And there are functions which carry out a task and return a value. And again, they provide structure to your code and they allow you to have reusable program components. So in order to go through this and not do it in an abstract way, we're going to use this example of a program on the left, which is a simple program for playing a dice game. Now in this program, the code actually starts at the bottom of the code listing here. You can see one of the first lines of program code is a call to a subprogram, a block of code. So we hit the line output throw and the program jumps and finds the block of code or the subprogram with the heading output throw. Now this code example is being shown to you in Python, but at the end of the video we'll show you the syntax which will be used in the exams. You can see that when we get to the end of this sub problem here, we hit a return value and it returns the value of roll to the part of the program that called it. Now this makes this subprogram output throw a function, because remember functions return a value whereas procedures do not. You'll also notice that inside the function output throw, there's actually another function call to a subprogram roll a dice. And you can see that roll a dice returns a random number from 1 to 6. Now, this wasn't really necessary. We didn't really need to put a single line of code, random number 1 to 6, inside a separate function. But we've done it here to show you that there's nothing wrong with calling one subprogram from inside another. And again, because the subprogram returns a value, it's again an example of another function and not a procedure. You can also see that output throw calls another subprogram, order dice. And you can see that once order dice is executed an if statement, it returns the largest dice first. And again, because it returns a value, it indeed makes order dice an example of another function. The advantages of using subprograms is a program becomes easier to write and it becomes easier to debug. We are effectively creating reusable program components with their own bespoke name. We could then gather these functions together into a library for easy use across multiple programs. Indeed, we're using an example of a library in this program, and you have done this already in programming without realizing. So we have a library called random, which we import into our program at the beginning. This imports the entire random library of functions into our program, so we can then use those functions within our program. The program is also much easier to test if we block and chunk our program down like this into subprograms, because we can test each procedure or function individually on its own, and when we know it works, we can plug it into a larger overall program. Here we can see how subprograms are called from inside flowcharts. There's a specific symbol used in flowcharts which tells you that you need to jump off and start executing another flowchart. And when you reach the end of that flowchart, you'd return from the one that called it and carried on. So this is the flowchart for the previous program we showed you in Python. Pause the video for a second and just work through it slowly so you can see how you jump back and forwards between the different flowcharts as they're being called. So let's just recap then. Larger programs are developed as a set of subprograms called subroutines. Structuring code into subprograms makes the code easier to read and debug. Now there are two types of subprograms. There are functions which return values and create reusable program components, and there are procedures that simply create a modular structure to a program, break it down and make it easier to read, but they don't return values. Each subprogram can be easily tested, and subprograms can be saved into libraries and then imported and reused in other programs. In the exam, it may be possible they show you examples of procedures and functions using AQA's pseudocode. It's very similar. The procedures or function either start with the word procedure or function and they end with either end procedure or end function. We then have the name or the identifier for that procedure, followed by a list of parameters separated by commas in brackets that procedure or function will take in. The only difference between the two then, as you know already, is a function would include a return line.